I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank Mr. Red Stoltenberg for providing music this evening. I'm Ann Kinzel, your incoming league president, and I have the unenviable task of filling the largest shoes in Story County, those of Carolyn Klaus. We're going to do this land. This land is your land, Red.
And on your, the words are on your table. There's about 4 sheets per table. So.
So we'll do the old traditional chorus like everybody knows, then we'll sing the 3 verses, and then we'll do the chorus again, so it doesn't take all night to sing it. And this is the key I can do it in, so you're going to do it in that key and like it. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of the diamond deserts. All around me, a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. As the sun was shining and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving and the dust clouds rolling, a voice come chanting as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. Repeat that last line. This land was made for you and me. Thank you all. Did a great job.
Thank you, Red. So for those of you who think progress is not possible, I have a little story about this song. When I was in kindergarten, we lived in Seattle, and it was during the height of sort of anti-communism, and Boeing was the boss. And my kindergarten teacher was a very nice lady from the Philippines, and she taught us this song, okay? She was suspended for a month for teaching us a commie song. So progress is possible, because here we are this evening, and I don't think it's a commie song at all.
Okay, let's stand, put our hands on our hearts, and say the pledge. It's on the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carolyn. We're going to start out by recognizing our guests, and please stand when I call your name. Life members, do we have Jane Halliburton and Jerry Prescott here? And I'd like to invite all elected officials to stand. So we have Lucy Martin, our auditor, Latifa Faisal from the Board of Supervisors, Linda Merkin, Board of Supervisors, and Herman Kornbach. Thank you for being here this evening. Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Are there any past presidents of the board? I think I see one or two. All right. Thank you. Linda Hagedorn and Linda Merkin. And I'd like our current board members to stand, if you would. All right, thank you. What a hard-working group. And we've lost some people this year, Carolyn. We've lost some people this year.
Yes.
So these were members who were with the league for many, many years and who passed this year. And let's take a moment of silence to recognize them. We have Marilis Potter, Dorothy Yorger, Cornelia Flora, Carol Phillips, Mary Jane Johnson, and Jim Noland. Thank you. All right. So Carolyn is going to give us a few reflections from her very long tenure as board chair. But I guess she's got to get her remarks. 5 years is a long time. This is going to be a speech.
It's not a 5-year speech. So, it has been an honor to serve as president of the League of Women Voters of Ames and Story County for the past 5 years. The League is an organization of integrity and adherence to values. With values and integrity in mind, it is easy to serve as president. As League members today, our goal is justice in government. It's not an easy task, but it is not a hopeless endeavor. We can have justice in our government if we recognize that no party, group, or faction holds power over we the people. We can be hopeful that an open mind and a kind heart will bring freedom and fairness for us all. The League provides a path to that goal. I have worked with a dedicated board. Many members have become close friends. I cannot thank them enough for their work and solid volunteering for our many events. If you served on one of my boards in the last 5 years, please stand. I thank you. In fact, some of my board members they would go, well, can I be on this committee now? We had fun at our board meetings. We talked, we enjoyed supporting each other. So, I have had the opportunity to be engaged on so many levels. I am reaching out to you to find your comfort zone. Check out these opportunities. Be on the League board or attend meetings on the first Thursday of each month. Be an advocate for the League and its positions. March in the 4th of July parade and with voter registration. Participate in voter registration, education, candidate forums, and legislative forums. Promote and volunteer to educate all Iowa on our new Citizens Handbook. our new Citizens Handbook. You can see a printed copy of it on the back table. There's little 4x4 cards on your table. Take that. It brings the printed copy alive. It is full of hot links. It will teach you what it is to be a citizen. So that is a wonderful goal that we achieved this year. Okay, promote, involve, attend the annual meeting. Thank you for being here. Attend the Iowa State League Council in June this year. We are hosting it at Ryman Gardens in June. Attend the annual State of the Community in January. Learn what our top leaders in Ames are doing. Attend the League Picnic in September. Check out the League Book Club. You will not be disappointed. They read challenging books and you walk away with things that you want to talk about for years to come. Sound off and learn at our monthly coffee thing and wind down at Torrent Brewing. On your table, there are sign-up sheets to do and participate in these many different things. And that will get you involved. You can help do the civic handbook. You can help voter registration. You can attend this league council in June. This is how you get involved. It's fun to be involved and feel like you're moving our community ahead. We have a strong and vibrant league in Ames and Story County. And our membership is what makes it strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And yeah, we want all of you to help, but we mustn't forget that we are fighting to defend democracy. I draw your eyes over here to my right to the suffragettes in their own word display from the Slater Historical Museum. It's quotes from suffragettes, all famous in their own right, but very inspiring as we take on the work of the League in the coming year. So I urge you, when you get a chance this evening, walk over there or go to Slater and read these women's words, because I know they inspire me and I'm sure they'll inspire you. So right now we're going to move to the portion of the program where we present awards, and I'm going to ask John Klaus to come up and present the 34th Annual League of Women Voters of Ames and Story County Carrie Chapman Catt Award. John?
The Carrie Chapman Catt Award is the highest honor that this chapter and the League itself has to offer each year. It is the result of a survey that goes out to the membership asking for nominations. The nominations are then submitted and reviewed by an awards committee, which I, as recipient of the last Catt Award, convene, and we decide upon who should be the next recipient. This year's award goes to a very deserved person, Judy Jones. Judy joined our league. She joined our league in 2015, and by 2016, she was on the board, and she was in charge of the membership committee. And she did membership very well. She never missed an opportunity to bring those membership application forms to an event, and she always did every bit of recruiting that she could. And our membership grew. During the 6 years she was on the chair of the membership committee, we went from I don't know where to the top league, or the top chapter in the league for the state of Iowa. Once in a while, we kind of go back and forth with Johnson County, but right now we are the #1. And thank you for that. Judy also worked on something that's kind of tedious, not too glamorous, but very important. She worked on the bylaws, and she convened the meetings, and she kept good records, and she made sure that we all attended those meetings and talked it through and did that work that has to be done. If you don't have rules, there are no rules to suspend. So she made sure we had good rules. She was also very active in our fundamental process of getting out the vote. She worked with the satellite voting with the crew from the county auditor's office, and she worked on registration drives, sometimes working multiple shifts. So Judy has certainly done a great service to the league. Probably one of the most exciting things she did was convene meetings in her home and other places to bring the new members into contact with the veteran members, to share stories and talk about things that we could do, projects that we could take on. And that brings vitality to this organization. She has grown our numbers. She has infused us with a will to win back the democracy that we are, I'm sorry to say, struggling to retain. And we will do it with the leadership exemplified by Judy Jones. Judy also worked at Food at First. She was busy with the Bethesda Food Pantry, and probably a lot of things we don't even know about. So thank you, Judy Jones, and come on up here and say a few words for us.
Thank you. A couple of weeks ago, I had a big birthday, and I was really upset about it, and I'm still trying to let it go through my mind what's happening. But this award, thank you for this award. When you turn 80, you start thinking about what you've done in life and stuff, and so this award has made me validate that I have done good things.
Now that's the truth. A well-deserved award. Congratulations, Judy. When you have a first couple, it's always complicated, right? Okay. Our next award, the league awards scholarships, and we have a sterling scholarship committee of Linda Hagedorn, Ruth Barnett, and Judy Jones, who are going to announce our scholarship winners this evening. I guess the honor falls to Linda.
It is always my pleasure to give out scholarships in the name of the League of Women Voters of Ames and Story County to such a group of outstanding students. This year we have 7 awards to very able students. I'll tell you just a little bit about them. And each year our scholarship program has grown and grown. Before I announce our scholarships, I want to say thank you to one of our scholarship alumni who is here with us. This young lady, stand up please. I'm getting old, your name I forget. Brittany. Brittany was among our first scholarship winners, and now she's a member of the league. Isn't that wonderful? Each of our scholarship winners will get a check tonight. Our scholarship awards range from $275 to $500. So the first award winner is Shiara Chappelle. Shiara, could you come up please? Ciara's application is a model of League of Women voter alignment. Her 2-year appointment as student school board representative placed her at the highest level of civic engagement available to high school students. And her weekly YSS mentoring of a high school middle schooler demonstrates steady grassroots commitment to empowering vulnerable youth. Her stated career goal, research in medicine to serve those struggling with substance abuse disorder in underserved communities. This directly embodies the League of Women Voters' values of diversity and empowerment. Her application was polished and specific throughout. We're very proud of Ciara, and good luck with you. Next, Haley Jackson. Haley, we're very proud to present you with a scholarship and certificate. Haley's application was extremely well done. She will be going to graduating Colo Nesco. She's going to be attending DMAC and to be a dental assistant. And we're very proud to be able to sponsor students who go on to different types of career modes. So thank you very much, Haley. Audrey Spees. Audrey, scholarship and the certificate. Audrey is graduating from Gilbert High School. She's going to be attending DMAC, and her major is Health and Science Fitness. She's being awarded the League of Women Voters Blueprint for Opportunity Award. Like all of the students, her accomplishments are well received. We know that she's going to do well, and she has been a student leader throughout her 4 years of high school. Thank you, Audrey. Emily Roche. Emily Roche could not be here. Several of our scholarship recipients could not be here because they're busy doing service. And Emily was one of them. She's graduating from Gilbert High School. She will be going to Iowa State University and majoring in early childhood. Her application stood out among many in her devotion to young children and bringing service to the community. She also had 4 years of high school and has done exceptional service. We will mail her certificate and scholarship. Sela Castleberry. I think Sela could not be with us today. Sela is graduating from Ames High School, attending Grinnell College, and she is majoring in philosophy or political science. Sela's application was exceptional across every dimension. She had over 400 hours of community service that she has dedicated. She works volunteers at Raising Readers of Story County, where she taught physics and literacy to K-3 students. Her career goal is to become a lawyer, focusing on abolishing the death penalty. Cadence Reyes. Cadence? Cadence is our recipient of the Carolyn Klaus Civic Leadership Award. Yes, Carolyn, we had several people donating in your name to provide this scholarship. And you'll see that we have a very worthy recipient here in Cadence. A little bit about Cadence. Cadence had probably one of the most strongest applications in our pool. Her documented service record was unmatched. Iowa Youth Congress member, one of 100 selected statewide, She was the founder of a record-breaking annual blood drive, coordinated with School Board and LifeServe and Mary Greeley High School Summer Volunteer Program. She wrote an essay about her audacity framework, reclaiming boldness as a young woman in male-dominated STEM. Was very creative and intellectually distinctive. So we're very proud of you, Cadence. Wish you the well, and know that your scholarship is founding a very fine female leader as well. Okay? Bryn Kane is our last scholarship recipient. Bryn could not be here. She's at a track meet tonight. But she is our Guardian of Democracy Award. She's graduating from Nevada High School. She'll be attending the University of Iowa, majoring in special education. She is currently employed as a para-educator at All Aboard for Kids. And her Special Olympics coaching across multiple sports, combined with Food at First volunteering and 3 team captaincies. She's captain of cross country, track, and softball. So we're very proud of Bryn as well. And that's it.
Well, I want to congratulate all the awardees. What a distinguished group. And I want to thank all of our members who contributed to these scholarships, because without your contributions, there are none. So congratulations to our members for funding these wonderful awards. And now we're going to move to another award. And Barb Wheelock is going to present the 8th Annual Making Democracy Work Award.
This year's Making Democracy Work Award is going to our Ames Public Library. Megan Klein Hewitt and Anessa Olson will be accepting the award on behalf of the library. So for people to make a democracy work, I think first of all they have to be part of a community. They have to feel respected and heard. And then they need resources to educate and inform them. And we are so lucky in Ames to have the Ames Public Library that provides those things for us. So I was raised in Ames, and so I'm very familiar with the library. I know we have a wonderful library, but I thought before I got up and started talking about this, I'd just go and take a look and see, if there are maybe a few things that I didn't know. I am amazed at the resources we have at our fingertips at the library. I knew that we had easy access to so many books, newspapers, magazines, audio-visual materials that present a wide range of viewpoints. I didn't know that if you're homebound, you could get those delivered to you. I know that they provide free internet service. I didn't know they provided free Wi-Fi hotspots. They provide technology resources. So if you have analog media and want to digitize it, you can go to our library. I didn't know that. They provide technology resources that include Adobe Creative Cloud, which I have no idea what that is, but they have tutorials on it, and they have staff people that will help you with that. They have multilingual resources and translation services. They have resources on language learning, on business, on career, health. They have a civic center where you can learn about voting. You can find resources for assistance with food and housing. You can learn how to get more involved in the Ames community. You can learn how to run for office or to join a board or a commission. So we have all of these resources. And then we have this beautiful space where we can go. You walk in the door, there's friendly staff. They are so knowledgeable. They can help you. If they don't have the information, they'll direct you to the information. So as a community, we can come together. We can debate, we can have panels, we can have forums, we can have educational events. So we have all of those things we can do. Our Ames Public Library provides all of us with a safe space where we can gather and connect and have the resources so we can make democracy work. So I'm pleased to be able to present the award for making democracy work. So we have that.
Thank you very much for honoring the library with this award. I think we take our role as far as democracy goes very seriously and are proud to support the League and everything that you are doing to help bring democracy to our community. Anessa and I are here as the folks who work most closely with you on programming, but it really takes all of us. It's Tiff in our business office who's approving all of those meeting room requests. It's Bo, our facilities manager, who's setting up the space for elections. It's our youth services staff who manage those long lines on satellite voting days. So thank you for honoring all of our work and the way that we support the community.
So, you know, John said we're the biggest league in Iowa, but without our partnership with the library, we wouldn't be nearly as powerful as we are. So thank you. And now we're going to move on to our keynote address.
I need a refresher from Max on, on the PowerPoint. I learned PowerPoint from Max at the library, but that was 5 years ago. My daughter and I did it. She remembers it. I have to go to her every year to help me bring this back up. So I really appreciate everything that they do. You know, their rooms are beautiful and they're usually available. So it is my pleasure to invite Carrie Kadrowsk to be our keynote speaker tonight. She started at Iowa State in 2019, and I was invited to be on the hiring team that interviewed the people for that position. And she was outstanding, and it was so wonderful to bring her to Iowa State. And she now is head of the Carrie Chapman Catt Center. She heads up Women in Politics. She's a professor in political science. And then this year I got to work with her again when she partnered and became the Civics Committee at Iowa State, and it's been wonderful to work with her and Dr. Shaw. So Carrie, come up and share with your program at Iowa State.
And thank you, Carolyn, for the invitation and that beautiful introduction. It's been a real joy to be here in Ames and at Iowa State doing the things that I love. And in fact, when I interviewed at Iowa State and I had to make a research presentation to the political science department, I said that I had two areas of research that really form the core of what I do. And one was women in politics, and the other was civic engagement. So now I am able to bring both of those to sort of full fruition. So there's a lot of discussion about civics and the need for additional civic education nationally. And I think it's one of the few issues that really does have bipartisan support, that there's this sense that people don't know what they need to know to be functioning fully as citizens in our democracy. One of the problems, though, is that there are very different definitions about what that should be, right? So that's where the disagreement comes. So I want to talk a little bit about what's going on nationally, how we ended up at this point where we're having really many conversations about civics, and a lot of states and even at the federal level taking some action on civics, and then exactly how what we're doing at Iowa State fits in. So first of all, to define this, I take a very narrow definition of civic education and civic engagement. So I see this as being involved in the processes of democracy. So knowing about government, knowing about democratic processes, understanding the foundational ideas of the American experience. Other people define civics as also to include community engagement that's non-political, volunteerism, service learning, and I think all of those are really valuable. And hats off to our high school students who have already done so much of that work, but it's just not how we are defining civics today. I see community engagement as important but separate. This particular picture is from Rochester, New York, and it is Susan B. Anthony's gravestone. And given that we are all friends of suffragists here tonight, these are I voted stickers that people put on her gravestone on Election Day. Okay, so in terms of origins of public education, when I teach public policy classes, usually the story is, you know, in Europe they developed this idea first and then the United States kind of did its thing later. The one exception to that is universal free public education. This was a policy initiative that was developed in the United States much earlier than it was in the more hierarchical monarchist countries in Europe. And its purpose was to take immigrant children and to turn them into Americans. It was to teach them how to be citizens when their family's experience, when their linguistic heritage was in monarchies, and that they did not know how to be citizens in a democracy. And so they needed to learn English, but they also needed to learn basic math skills, and they also needed to learn about American traditions and American political philosophy. So that is, you know, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the founding stories, and things like that. So there was a lot of political socialization involved, as well as fostering a sense of being American patriots. This picture, by the way, was taken 100 years ago outside of a country school in Story County, Iowa. So it seems appropriate. Okay, so that was really sort of the initial push. Things, however, began to change and expand with Sputnik. This is a model of Sputnik, which started the space race, of course. And this was the satellite that the Soviet Union put into space in the 1950s with the little dog inside. And it led to panic in the United States, that the Soviet Union was going to be able to conquer space and develop weaponry, and that we would be losing this to an authoritarian system. So at this point, the federal government passed one of its first major laws governing K-12 education, and that was the National Defense Education Act of 1958. And it was devoted to investing, spending in science, math, and foreign language. So here we have sort of our first push towards STEM. And then in the subsequent decades, we see that other new subjects are introduced into the K-12 curriculum. health and sex ed, physical education, vocational training, computers and robotics, business, and even things like learning about STIs and so forth. So a whole lot of things are being asked of public schools in the 6 hours a day for 180 days for 13 years for public schools. And the same is true of social studies. While we might think of, government and American history as being the core of civics education, social studies is much broader. And I've worked with students who are working to become social studies educators, and they need to know a little bit of something about everything. And these topics, with the exception of anthropology, are all tested on the certification test for high school social studies teachers. So they have to be able to pass a national test to receive their state certification in social studies, and it covers almost all of these 8 subjects. So it really is a vast amount of knowledge that we are expecting our social studies teachers to know and to be able to impart to our students, to our children. But that also means that they don't know a topic as in-depth, right? So when we are looking at English, right, yeah, that's kind of fractured, but really they only have to know literature, writing, and reading. That's the 3 sort of topics under language arts. When you talk about science, that's even further divided, where you have a student who will become a physics teacher in high school and only need to know a whole lot about physics or mathematics. By contrast, the social studies teachers really have a polyglot of knowledge that they have to have. So coming into the 21st century, that's this one, if you're wondering. We have even further changes at the federal level. And major change number 1 that I'm going to mention today is No Child Left Behind, or NCLB. You probably remember this from the George W. Bush administration. It was passed in 2002. It was really a reform of the Elementary Education Act. But in the NCLB, what we find is that there is even further emphasis on STEM, on science and mathematics. And out of the 4 core courses or core fields of study in K-12 education, right, language arts, social studies, science, and mathematics, 3 of the 4 are now required to test at grades 4, 8, and 12. But not social studies. Social studies are only tested in grade 8. So everything that we know about our students' knowledge of civics and American history and geography is tested in the 8th grade when they're, 14? And they've got years and years of further education ahead of them. And as many education experts have told me, is that what it really boils down to is that if it's not tested, it's not taught. So teachers who carry an enormous burden and schools that are graded on their performance on these national standardized exams, I mean, literally they call it the nation's report card, that they have funding riding on this. So these are very high stakes exams, especially for the schools that, where the students are taking them. So that means that sort of, social studies, which is not only fragmented, but now it's kind of there's this message coming that it is not as important as the other core subject matter. The second major change, though, was one that I think really had benign intentions, right? And that was to create so-called action civics. There was this belief that civics, as it was conventionally taught, where it was like there are 3 branches of government, the House of Representatives is based on the population, was a snooze fest, right? And on top of that, for a lot of high school students, it was completely irrelevant because they were minors. right? So they couldn't vote, they couldn't run for office. All of that seemed very abstract and far away. So this was an attempt to move away from the conventional forms of teaching and an effort to make things relevant to students where they were today, right? So less so on knowing, the clauses of the Constitution, or to be able to recite the Declaration of Independence, or to know why John Hancock signed his name so big on the Declaration, and an emphasis on helping students make civics relevant to their everyday lives. So what it was to challenge students to identify a problem within their community, and then to help them discover how they could do something about it and take action as minors, right? As 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds, right? So it was less emphasis on voting, more and the electoral process, and more on sort of community organizing, more on demonstrating and how to influence and present information to stakeholders, and more on how to petition to elected officials. However, as it turns out, young people are interested in a lot of things like education funding, the environment, right? Crime, school safety, gun control, because they're worried about getting shot in school, right? So and then there was also this sort of emphasis on volunteerism as too. But with the subject matter that these students were choosing, because it was based on the relative relevance in their lives, it ended up meaning that action civics became associated with liberal indoctrination, right? That this was then pushing students to embrace certain kinds of issues from a certain ideological perspective, and then that placed action civics sort of in crosshairs and subject to a lot of criticism. So how does all this stuff come together, right? Short answer, we're in trouble. Yeah. Number one, there is a huge spending differential between civics education and STEM. We spend $50 of federal money per student per year for STEM education, compared to 5 cents for civics education. Okay, now when my scientist friends here start getting their dander up, calm down. STEM is, with the exception of mathematics, is expensive to teach. You need equipment, you need computers, you need chemicals, you need gas lines, you need specialized, lab benches, you need safety equipment, right? But also, this reflects that students are typically taking science and mathematics every year in high school. That, as we will see, is not the case for civics and social studies. The nation's report card, a product of the No Child Left Behind Act. This is kind of hard to read, but where it says 8th grade civics scores, what we find is that there is essentially no change from 1996. So nothing is getting better, and that actually since 2014 it's getting worse, and that scores have dropped from 154 to 150, and that is statistically significant for those of you who care about that sort of thing. In other words, that means it's real. It's real. The drop in 8th grade history has been even greater, right, from 267 to 258. In addition, the NCLB also reports the percentage of students who are highly proficient and basic and below adequate. And the percentage of students that are highly proficient is also declining. Okay, but wait, you say, these are 8th graders. And we are here in the company of really great middle school and high school students, our scholarship winners, who are obviously very talented. They must have learned something more in high school. So we can take a look at AP, Advanced Placement Tests. And for those of you who might not be familiar, AP is when high school teachers teach college-level content based on a common syllabus and approved readings, and then the students at the end of that period take a national exam to earn college credit. These are very high-level courses that are taken by our most advanced students, right? So good for them, right? The number of AP exams that are being taken, the total of them across like 25 subjects, you can take it in art history, you can, take it in physics, all sorts of stuff. The number of AP exams being taken has been steadily increasing for about 30 years. But the percentage of them that are in American government is declining. And moreover, the pass rate for American government is 49% compared to 72% across all AP exams. So again, I don't think that it is because political scientists are cruel and purposefully design a really nasty test, right? I've actually graded these exams. I've been involved in helping to write the exams. They are the stuff that I would teach in freshman level American government. But even our highest, best performing, most gifted high school students are struggling. And I would posit, without being able to prove, that it's probably because they aren't getting a firm enough foundation before they are entering into these advanced classes. Anybody depressed yet? Okay, if you're not then yet, let me talk about this. So the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania every year puts out a Constitution Day survey, and they ask questions about civic knowledge, and they usually have some questions about the First Amendment because they are, tied to the media as well. So this one was in 2024. Only 2/3 of Americans can name all 3 branches of government. 74, this is the good news, 74% know that freedom of speech is protected in the First Amendment. There are 5 civil liberties, or 6 if you count freedom of religion as 2, right, in the First Amendment, and they can't name any others. So the next highest one is the freedom of religion, and then 22% believe that the right to bear arms is in the First Amendment. It's not. Okay. And about half of U.S. adults don't know which party controls the Senate and which one controls the House. So, yeah, this is the sort of stuff that you really kind of just need to know if you're going to understand current events, right? This is not the material that I would be teaching in a graduate level course on political science. So let's take a look at high school standards, right? The Hoover Institute at Stanford University took on the enormous task of evaluating civics requirements. This was not the content or the student learning outcomes. This was just, what do high school students have to take to graduate, right? So there are 8 states that do not require any instruction in civics for high school graduation. Only 4 states require a full year. Most states have have a half year of instruction out of 8 semesters. 1 semester is civics or government. Sometimes both government and economics together. And 2 states have no requirement but a test. But if you're lucky enough to live in Pennsylvania, you don't have to pass the test to graduate. You just have to take the test. The Fordham Institute took on a much more ambitious project. They looked at the social studies standards of all 50 states in the District of Columbia, and they found that only 5 states were exemplary in both U.S. history and U.S. government, including like Alabama. Kind of a surprising, outcome. 15 states were mediocre in at least one of those 2, so they kind of got a C rating from them, and 20 states were inadequate or received a grade of F. Iowa received a grade of F. Now, this was before the newest social studies standards that are being implemented right now. Fordham has not repeated this study to catch up to Iowa, but Iowa got an F, right? So did Nebraska. So did Illinois. Minnesota got a B+. So for those of you like me who are displaced Minnesotans, you can take some pride in that, right? Okay, so all of this is to say that when we look at Iowa State University, we know overall that American civic literacy is poor, and it has been declining for a couple of decades. I already talked about the F that Iowa got, but on top of this, we worked with the registrar, and we looked at Iowa State University students. Only 21% of our college graduates with a BA or a BS have taken introductory American government or introductory American history at Iowa State. This includes dual enrollment, transfer, and CLEP credit. So 80% of our students are not taking either one of those subjects at the introductory level. We have a quantitative evidence of a lack of knowledge among Iowa State students, and we also participate in the NSSE called NISE. It's the National Study of Student Engagement. And for Iowa State seniors, all of the reported items related to civic literacy, civic skills, or civic disposition have declined since 2016 and or are lower than all of our peer institutions. And some of those declines have not been mirrored at our peer institutions, so we can't say, oh, it's COVID. It's something about Iowa State. That same survey found that only half of Iowa State seniors said that their education and their experiences at Iowa State contributed to their knowledge and development of being an informed and active citizen, right? And we also know that our students in STEM, which are 60% of this or so of the students at Iowa State, and men, which are about 55% of our students at Iowa State, vote at lower rates than students studying in other fields or are female. So Iowa State has some structural habitual barriers to this. And I will admit my own bias. I care a whole lot about civics, but this worries me, right? We are a leading national institution, and we are not teaching our students about how to build their citizenship skills. And it gets worse, just in case you were wondering. So we see rising incidences of political violence, the assassinations in Minnesota, January 6th, kidnapping plots, other threats against both men and women, but especially women and Democrats and Republicans. So this is sort of a widespread thing. We see election denialism. We see eroding faith in our government institutions. We see the rise of conspiracy theories. Affective polarization is a real political science wonky term, so you're going to get your political science wonky term for the day. Affective polarization is the tendency for people to assume negative characteristics of folks that they disagree with. So to, in their heads, think they must be stupid, they must be evil, they must be whatever. The part of the population that is most likely to have the highest levels of affective polarization are Democratic women. There's an increase in partisan media, and as I said, declining faith in institutions. So nationally, there's a lot of conversation about how we address these problems, and both on the left and on the right, or those that are sort of moderate. So in terms of just some of the conservative organizations that I have seen that have put out recommendations, put out policy papers, white papers, where they are proposing solutions to this decline in civic knowledge, include the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, the Jesse Helm Center, which is in North Carolina, shockingly. The Civics Alliance is a branch of the National Association of Scholars, which is it's a professional association of a number of college professors who identify as conservatives. And interestingly enough, there's been money put into this by some conservative advocates, and they have recently established a new institution in Austin, Texas, called the University of Austin. The University of Austin is about 3 years old, not to be confused with the Longhorns. That's the other institution there, right? And what they are intending to do is to follow sort of what they see as a classic small L liberal education with an emphasis on the great books. And this is an opportunity, they feel, for conservative students to come and to be mentored in the sort of academic tradition that they want to have, and that would be friendly to their perspectives. This is sort of rooted in the belief that higher education as a whole is tilts very steeply towards the liberal side. Those that are elsewhere on the political spectrum include the Sandra Day O'Connor Institute. When Sandra Day O'Connor stepped down from the Supreme Court, she devoted her retirement to working on this question of civics. So one of the things that the O'Connor Institute does is a resource for K-12 teachers that's technological based, but it's called iCivics. So it's a way that they can produce and use through technology civics content. But also there are a number of various higher education groups that are working on this. So AACNU is the Association of American Colleges and Universities. NASPA is the Professional Association for Student Affairs Personnel. Campus Compact is an association of university presidents devoted to civic engagement and voter engagement. And even the NCAA has begun to devote time and attention to civics and has a no play day in the fall of election years where teams are not supposed to play or have practices so that they can either vote or otherwise do civic engagement work. The American Bar Association hosts a high school and even middle school competition called We the People on the content of the American Constitution. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce holds has local, regional, statewide, and national civics bees. So it's really quite a remarkable kind of effort. And we are sponsoring the middle school civics bee tomorrow morning. So it will be coming to a Memorial Union near you. But the issue is, though, is that there are very competing visions of what civic education should be. So the previous slide really tells us that a lot of people are worried about these problems. But what do you do about it? So many of the conservative organizations want to focus on the American founders, the founding documents, They want to teach Western civilization because of its importance to the American political tradition rather than world history. What's the difference? There's no India, no China in Western Civ, right? It's Europe and the Americas. They want to focus on American exceptionalism, this notion that the United States is unique and sort of uniquely gifted. Whether by a divine being or by the genius of our founders, but that the United States is special, right? As in the case of the University of Austin, they want to focus on the great books, right, from the Western tradition. A lot of British literature, Plato, Aristotle, Hume, de Tocqueville, people like that. And they want nothing in the curriculum that they see as left-wing or left-wing indoctrination. So that includes, of course, action civics. They would see the use of democracy and democracy engagement as potentially tilting left, because they would like to point out that we are not a direct democracy, and we're not. We are a republic. You will also see thrown into the bag of things they don't like: diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, and one catch-all term that I have heard recently called grievance studies. So that's women's studies, women's and gender studies, LGBTQ studies, African American studies, Latino studies, Mexican American studies, et cetera, et cetera. So any of those that are minority or ethnic, or groups that have been subject to systemic discrimination. And then the one that bothers me the most, given the work that I do on student voter engagement, is student voter engagement. And this is because a lot of people think that student voter engagement is targeted to liberal students and not to conservative students, and that this contributes to what we see when we look at exit polls, or, and we see that young people are more likely to vote Democratic. So there have been significant efforts to tamp down on student voter engagement. Others would argue that we need to move beyond the founders to contemporary issues. You know, we need to include people who maybe aren't dead, right? And to look at, you know, the changes to the Constitution and current challenges to, say, voting rights, for example. They want to focus on democratic norms and beliefs. They want to shore up faith in the electoral system and encourage voter engagement. And to also talk about sort of the mechanics of government, not only the theories behind it. So you say, Karen, which one of these is you? Well, I'm kind of a both and kind of a person. I think it is extraordinarily important to study the founders and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, because our republic is based on an idea, right? We are based on this idea that ordinary people can govern themselves. And in 1776, this was literally revolutionary. Literally revolutionary. And we need to understand why those ideas were so radical. We need to understand what our founders envisioned. And we also need to think about where they were wrong. They were human like the rest of us, so a lot of what they did was really, really amazing and remarkable, and some of it may not have worked out so well. And that kind of critical thinking we need to understand. And we need to make sure that our students and our future generations understand. But then we don't stop. We have to encourage our students to think about how they can become involved in our government structures. And this goes beyond voting. And I will tell you, in my class this semester, I spent a lot of time trying to get my students to think of how they could be involved in politics. And they got voting, they always do. And I said, great, what else can you do? And they said, we can protest. I'm like, great, what else can you do? They never got to. I want to run for office. I want to serve on a board or commission. I want a career where I am working for government because I want to help people. They never got there. And we need them to get there because we need them to do that work for ourselves and in the future. So, what's happening in higher ed? Quite a bit. So, first of all, my very first publication in the field of civic education was in 2003, where I discovered, it was called Civic Education by Mandate, and there were 9 states that had a law in place that college students had to take American government, Constitution, something related to civics. Today there are 14. And more states are considering this as well. Florida and Purdue also have exams that students have to pass in order to graduate. In Florida, they have to take a class and take an exam, a major standardized exam. There are the development of civic education centers with kind of an ideological footprint, shall we say. Those exist now in Florida, Ohio, at Arizona State, in Texas, and in Iowa. And the federal government has mandated that colleges and universities disperse information about elections, voter registration, and we are mandated to celebrate the Constitution on or around Constitution Day, which, if you're wondering, is September 17th. So what's going on at Iowa State? Okay, so first of all, in November of 2023, there were a series of directives that came from the Board of Regents to the 3 regent universities, and among them was a charge to develop some sort of campus-wide initiative on civic education and free speech. So for the next several months, there were groups of people on campus, especially the provost at the time, who was very trying to figure out what this was going to be. So I had a meeting with the provost and I said, you know, you've got several hundred faculty here and they're all really wonderful and really smart, but there's exactly one of them who knows anything about civic education. And he brilliantly agreed. So I was on a multidisciplinary committee that came up with the sort of vision of what we wanted to do, which was to promote civic literacy, civic skills, and civic disposition, sort of 3 levels of civic knowledge. We wanted to reach Iowa State students, but we also had this wonderful resource called Extension, where we can produce content that can be used elsewhere, because our extension partners were saying, I get phone calls with people who say, what does the city council do? They needed that information too, right? So we determined that we would do programming, curriculum, and have a research component. So Cyclone Civics operated as an initiative. So, you know, just as sort of a project on campus for a year. It was at this time that we brought on my colleague Kelly Shaw, the former mayor of Indianola, and otherwise a political activist as well as a political scientist. And I want to give him a shout out because he was one of the authors with one of our really gifted students of this wonderful handbook. So we're honored to partner with the League on that. And I get no credit for writing that. So if there are any mistakes, they're Kelly's. So we worked with the president's office, and then the university decided that we really needed to create a permanent center, that was really going to fulfill what the Board of Regents had in mind. So Cyclone Civics was established as an official center in April of 2025. So again, the kind of civics that we want to have is really kind of a both and. You know, we agree with people on the right, about ideals and ideas and values and the contributions of many, many thinkers, but we also believe in the contributions of other people who may not have been present or active in the founding for one reason or another, but who have been important in shaping our American government and policy. We want to get into the mechanics of government. We want to embrace diverse perspectives and free speech, and especially in our era of polarized politics, we want to help our students learn how to disagree agreeably. We want them to be able to do that respectfully, because somewhere along the line, the words compromise has become a dirty word, right? I want to reclaim that as a virtue, not a vice, and to help our students see it the same way. So for the last 2 years, we've been doing lots of stuff. We did a student political opinion survey, found out shockingly that Iowa State students are mostly independents and Republicans, like the rest of Iowa. We've been putting out some grant applications. We have a proposal for a journal into my professional association. We have been doing videos, bite-sized civics, BYTE, with the extension. That's part of our extension partnership. So you can go find them on our website. Somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes long about civics. So, you know, what's a sunshine law, and who was John Hancock besides the guy with big handwriting? You know, they're really, really cute. They're done by our students. They're animated, and their creativity just really shines through. We have been doing some really great programming for America at 250. Including how pirates saved democracy, indigenous peoples in the Constitution, ancient Greeks and Romans in the Constitution, as well as having Secretary of State Paul Pate on campus coming in to talk about student voting, and we're next week having an Associate Justice of the Iowa Supreme Court come in as well. So lots and lots of great stuff, usually drawing about 250 people to each of these events, so pretty decently attended. And then my favorite is that last year we did a dramatic reading of the Constitution and served cookies, and this year we did a dramatic reading of 3 versions of the Declaration of Independence and served donuts. So I put it out to my students. It's like, what are we going to do next year, because it has to be alliterative, and one student suggested bagels in the Bill of Rights. So I think that just might be it. So I hear a couple of common objections, and I think I understand the basis behind them. So I'm taking off my Cyclone Civics hat and putting on Karen's pontificating hat. So first of all, you know, that K-12 teachers say they have too much to do and that they don't have enough time to teach more about civics or anything else that people are suggesting, right? K-12 education is the overstuffed burrito. And that they have to focus on what's getting tested. I would say that we really need to rethink our school year. You know, we have a relatively short academic year by international standards of 180 days. We'll see, like, looking at Australia, right? They go to school for 220 days a year. And they still get substantial breaks between periods. 6 hours is a fairly short day. I think it could be a little bit longer to have more instructional time and then still be able, especially for the little kids, to have recess, which they would need. And then, so I think that that's a couple of very unpopular suggestions that I might have. The other one is that I hear is that, oh, they get this in high school. Well, I think we have demonstrated that what they're getting in high school, no matter how gifted the teacher, no matter how wonderfully presented, is not enough. And that students also say, they're like, oh, we don't need to teach civics in college. They got that in high school. Well, they also took science in high school. They took math in high school, but nobody says, oh, you don't have to take more math in college, right? So what we need to think about is we need to push civics on the same plane of expecting people with college degrees to have a higher level of proficiency than people with high school degrees, just as we do in these other subjects that they also take in high school. We don't presume that they have enough to have earned a college degree by the level of work that they would have done in high school. Okay. I will take your questions, but if they're hard, I won't answer. But please. Seriously, are there any questions? Yes.
The bite-sized videos, are those available on YouTube or?
Yeah, they're on a YouTube channel, but they're all linked from Cyclone Civics, which is Cyclone Civics, one word, at iastate.edu. So you'll find them under the extension page. And our students get all the credit for them. They are the complete, artistic drive of that.
I'm going to put a plug in after hearing your presentation for our Citizens Handbook. My goodness. It is, and we gave one of our education events last week here, and it was interesting. We ended up with mostly adults in our presentation because I said there must be a sexier presentation across the hall, and it was AI.
Right.
So, but we gave the immigration test, we told about our citizenship, and the people in that room were they didn't feel secure about the answers they were giving.
Yeah.
And so you may talk about students, but the adults that were there also need to update
Yep.
your learning.
And another thing that I would like to say about the Citizens Handbook, and again, I was not the author, so I'm not promoting anything that I have done, is that state and local governments touch our lives far more directly than the federal government. And what we are taught mostly is about the operations of the federal government. But really, if we're talking about trash, water quality, health care, transportation, anything other than the post office, it's local government. And we don't teach that in and we as citizens need to know and understand.
So the last pages of the book tell about your responsibility as a citizen. 10 points. What do I do now? What makes me a citizen? So I'm so thankful I got to meet Karen. She introduced me to Kelly Collins.
I did.
Dr. Kadrowsk, how closely does this sort of civics illiteracy track growing income inequality, and is one towards any other?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, clearly then, yeah, so the question was, to what degree does civic illiteracy or lack of civic knowledge track with income inequality? And it does track really pretty well. As in many, many subjects, what we find is that people who have more education, which is highly correlated with income, have greater civic knowledge. They understand how the system works better, but then they also have something that geeky political scientists call civic efficacy. They believe that their voice makes a difference, that what they want to say or do, it matters. And that is also really strongly tied with income. And so growing income inequality means that there are fewer and fewer people who have that sense of efficacy and that knowledge. Thank you all. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Karen. Well, the value in learning that we don't realize is being taught today to our youth. So we take the little card home, or you can buy the print copy, but if the card brings the book to life, because it's full of links. thank you for coming tonight. This has been delightful.